The first time that I saw Prabhupada in person was just an overwhelming feeling. I was in Dallas, Texas, and my mother was there, Bhumata, and two brothers, stepfather, and I was overwhelmed. I saw Prabhupada as a divine angelic being. That's just the way he came across. There was such softness about him and purity and connection with you and God. You felt all of that all at once. I was initiated personally by Srila Prabhupada in Dallas, Texas. Originally from Cleveland, Ohio. It was a long story how we ended up there. And Prabhupada initiated me, my mother, my stepfather, two brothers at the same time. And later installed the deities of Radha Kalachandji on the same day. So that was Radhastami, 1972.
Did he say your name? Did he define or?
Yeah, he gave us our name, and later we asked what was the meaning, I think. I can't remember the secretary person, but we had ended up in Dallas by a fluke in a way, because in living in Cleveland, we had written Prabhupada. Prabhupada wrote us back. We weren't initiated, and we had had some challenges with the temple. It's a long story about those challenges. And this was 1972, where to go, we didn't know. I had been a student at the University of Chicago at 17, and my mother, living in Cleveland, had come to visit me in Chicago and gave me a Bhagavad Gita and that first poster of Krishna, Lord Vishnu, with the four arms and all that, in Prabhupada's first album. So I really got to meet Prabhupada through the Bhagavad Gita before I ever met him in person. So after I read the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhu, I went to join my mother in Cleveland. And we practiced Krishna consciousness for some time. And there we wrote Prabhupada, and Prabhupada wrote us back. And my mother had been a serious spiritual student all her life. We were raised Christian, but she was always searching for something deeper from God, about God. And my brother, actually, my oldest brother, was downtown Cleveland one day, got it back to Godhead, decided not to give it to my mother because he knew her. He knew if he gave her that magazine, she was going to dive into it. This was 1971. So he kept it for weeks, but finally, somehow, the Lord in his heart, he gave it to her. And sure enough, my mother went to the storefront, Hare Krishna Temple in Cleveland, and in a matter of days, gave away all her furniture, became a Hare Krishna. So at that time, I was in Chicago, and then so later she sent me the Bhagavad Gita, as I told you that story. And then I came to join her. And after having those challenges with the devotee at that time, Bhatua Gopal, bless his heart, we decided to try to find another place that we could have some shelter with. And we didn't know where we were going. And my first husband came from Chicago and drove us. And my mother literally would pray, this is the truth, Prabhu, on the highway, Krishna, where should we go? And after a series of adventures, we ended up in Dallas, Texas. We didn't know Prabhupada was going to be there. We didn't know that he was even in the United States. And so we got there. We must have been really bedraggled. I mean, it was my mother, me, about four of my other little sisters and brothers. And, we'd had a series of mishaps along the way, but we got there. And I think the temple president was Stoka Krishna. So when he found out that we were from Cleveland, he said, he ran and called Cleveland without letting us know. And then when he came back, he said, I'm sorry you can't stay here, because Bhatua Gopal had told him we were troublemakers. And so my mother said, Prabhu, where to go? And I was pregnant, and she said, we're trying to be devotees. We don't have any else place to go. And he said, okay, you can stay here, but just one night. because tomorrow Prabhupada will be here. And we said, Prabhupada tomorrow. So he put us up. The temple at that time had just been, it was a Catholic parsonage that they had acquired, became the first Gurukula. And so we stayed there, and the next day Prabhupada came. And they said, Prabhupada, there's this black woman from Cleveland with all her children. It really wasn't all of them, but it was some of them. And Prabhupada sent for my mother. He said, tell her to come here. So my mother went, and she stayed in Prabhupada's office for 6 hours. And I was waiting and waiting for her to come back and bring me too, but I don't know, she kind of got excited. But anyway, the next day, we were at the water fountain, and Prabhupada's secretary said, Prabhupada is doing initiations tomorrow. And my mother said, well, tell him we want to be initiated. And so he went and told Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, ask her how many. And by this time, my stepfather had come on the bus, because, he was part of the whole troop. And my mother told him, stepdad, her, me, and 2 brothers. I actually said another younger brother. He was 5. So Prabhupada said, we'll do that next time. And so we got initiated. But before that, some devotees were saying, Prabhupada, I don't know if you should initiate them. We don't know what their sadhana is. We don't know who they're connected with. But they didn't know the pure devotee knew. They didn't know Prabhupada had written us. My mother even had taken a Sanskrit name before initiation. And when Prabhupada wrote her back, he wrote her in that name. Just how respectful and. And so we got initiated on Radhastami, September 12th, 1972. And that was that story.
Right.
During the initiation, Srila Prabhupada called us up one by one. First my stepfather, gave him the name Rup Chand. Then my mother gave her the name Bhumata Devi Dasi. Then me, Krsnanandini Devi Dasi. 2 brothers, Asutosh Das and Subhanu Das. And later the secretary told us what the names mean. And also, Sasvarup was there. He was acting sort of the Ritvik assisting Prabhupada. And Sasvarup wrote a letter telling that we had been initiated on that day by Prabhupada. So we got, official proof, right? And then Prabhupada explained through the secretary what our names meant. And Krsnanandini is a name of Srimati Radharani, which means one who gives joy to Krishna. And my mother, Bhumata, Mother Earth, the servant of Mother Earth. Rup Chand, the beautiful moon. Krishna, who's the beautiful moon. The form, Asutosh, was the name of Lord Shiva, which means he's easily pleased and easily angered, which was exactly the personality of my brother. That's just his whole nature. And then Subhanu, my youngest brother, his name meant the son of Krishna, servant of the son of Krishna. And then my 2 brothers actually stayed in the Gurukula for a while, because once Prabhupada left, we left. Prabhupada gave us permission to open a temple in the black community. And he actually told Saraswati Maharaj to give us all facilities. And then, because I was pregnant, we went to Nashville, to where my stepfather's family were, and my baby was born in Nashville. And Prabhupada actually named her, because my brother, who was in Gurukula, Asutosh and Subhanu, they were still in Gurukula, and he wrote me, he said, Krishnandini, you had the baby, ask Prabhupada to name her. Everybody's doing that. So I wrote Prabhupada a letter, and it took 6 months for that letter to come back, between 4 and 6 months. But we didn't call her anything, baby girl Dasi, Krishna Dasi, sweetie pie, we were waiting for Prabhupada. And he sent that letter. It was a beautiful letter. And he said, now you are my initiated disciple, and I must advise you to always chant 16 rounds, associate with my devotees as much as possible, and raise your children up firmly in Krishna consciousness. And he said, you can name the baby Bhakta Gaur Devi Dasi, and when she is older, we will initiate her. Because in the letter, I'd asked him to initiate her too. but Prabhupada promised. And he said, this will be the success of your life. That's what Prabhupada said. This will be the success of your life. Second time was at the very first Ratha Yatra in Chicago. It was held downtown Chicago. It was a big thing. Even the police were there. So many people were there. And we met Prabhupada at the airport. And then Prabhupada gave me a flower. And my brother begged me for that flower. Begged me. And I gave it to him. And then we went back to the temple in Evanston. At that time, that's where the temple was. And I remember Prabhu just wanting to be near Prabhupada. And it was a big crowd. You know, in the early days, everybody followed Prabhupada and whatever he was doing. So on one side, Prabhupada was sitting up on his Vyasa sign, and all these sannyasis were there, and nobody could get close to Prabhupada. And I was a shy, kind of reserved person at the time, and I want to be close to Prabhupada. So I went up and I just stood there in the midst of all these sannyasis of men, and they were elbowing me and hitting me with their... And Prabhupada looked over and said, like that, told him to stop. Just let me stay there. And I was able to stay there. This has happened in Evanston, Chicago. Made my whole day and world. You know? What that says about Prabhupada's character is that he had so much genuine love and compassion for everyone, and he paid attention. And you didn't have to be a big person, a sannyasi or anybody to be important to Prabhupada. And he just saw the love, and he gave the love. And those kind of memories stay in your heart forever, you know. And I remember also we were at another airport. I don't remember what city it was in. And Prabhupada was resting just before his plane took off. And my mother bowed down at his feet and kissed his feet. And she told my little brother, who was 2 at the time, to do the same thing. And he did. And all the devotees were saying, no, 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 don't do that. But Prabhupada said, leave her alone again. And, you know, he just had this way of reaching into your heart and giving you hope and giving you a sense of value, that you were important, that you could serve God, that you meant, you know, that sense of value to your being, and that you were loved. Yeah. And then one other memory I have of Prabhupada is in Dallas. I always wanted to be a teacher, but at the time I wasn't doing so much. And Prabhupada gave his instruction to the teachers because it was a Gurukula. And my mother said, go in there, Krsnanandini, you want to be a teacher. So she pushed me in that room with Prabhupada. And I went in there, and Prabhupada was talking to the teachers. And I don't remember hardly anything he said, but I remember 3 things. He said, don't hit the children with sticks. Just show them the sticks. They're very, very strong instruction. Another one he said was, the most important thing you need to teach children is to love them. Like, to love them is the highest qualification you need to teach children. And I kind of wish we had learned a little more of that in the early days, but that was an instruction that Prabhupada gave. And, oh yeah, one other incident. So we were in Dallas, we were walking through a doorway, and there was a tree that was hanging over. And this tree, this devotee had cut it down. So as we're walking, we always followed Prabhupada whenever we had the opportunity. So he's coming out into the courtyard. And this Prabhupada looked up and saw the tree, again, observant of, and he said, who has cut this tree? And everybody got really quiet. And then one devotee said, I did, Prabhupada. He said, why? Why did you cut the tree? And he said, but Prabhupada, it was hanging over, and I did it for the convenience of the devotee. And Prabhupada said, don't cut it, tie her up. Tie her up. He said, do not cut the tree unnecessarily. And that gave me an instruction for all of us, you know, because we were coming from a Western culture. What do we know about, taking care of nice trees or cutting trees or being thoughtful about cutting trees? But then everybody became thoughtful when Prabhupada said that. So later on, there came up a service that people needed to do, and Prabhupada looked at that devotee that had cut the tree. He said, "You do it. You're sadistic," to the devotee in front of everybody. And the devotee was so happy, he bowed down and offered his obeisance to Prabhupada. He knew that even that chastisement was love. But Prabhupada called him sadistic. That was very deep. Yeah, one of the most important, I think, impressions for me in my devotional life, because a lot of people ask me, Krsnanandini, how could you stay? There was so much flack from devotees, from non-devotees, from your family. It's because of Prabhupada and his love for us, in the sense that once he left, that whole devastation that we all felt, and the Lord said, you have to find Prabhupada in your heart. You gotta find him in there. If you do, then you'll be, and that's how I've been able to stay. Finding Prabhupada in my heart, and he's always been with me. And so over the years, I've had dreams and instructions from Prabhupada, things he told me to do and not do, and that has kept me, really fortified and appreciative and grateful, because to me, Prabhupada gave us everything. He gave us each other. He gave us Tulsi and Narada Muni and all these great acharyas and prasadam and how to be and hope, So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I guess one thing I might want to share too, Prabhu, is that the service I'm doing now, we have the Grahasta Vision Team. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a group of wonderful devotees who've banded together to support and enliven the Grahasta Ashram. So we do workshops and seminars and books. We got a book, Heart and Soul Connection, a devotional guide to marriage, service, and love. And the reason why this service is so strong in my heart is because I had a dream in about 1979 or 78 where Prabhupada told me to do it. And I was so unqualified. I was divorced at the time. I was like, who am I to, but Prabhupada told me to do it. And because of that instruction, and because of finally one day, I went in my deity room and I said, Prabhupada, you gave me this instruction. I don't know how to do it. I'm so unqualified. I fell on the floor and I just cried because it just hovered over my head every time. And I had asked my god brothers, what should I do? My god sister, Prabhupada told me to do this. Somebody said, well, Krsnanandini, you got a lot of children. Just make Krishna your husband. You're okay. I knew that wasn't it. I stretched out before Prabhupada after that. And the final conclusion was, I said, but I surrender. I accept it. After that, Prabhupada started putting all the pieces together, the husband, the training, the whatever, the groups. Yeah. And so we've been able to do this service for him.